Good morning, engineering and manufacturing educators, and welcome to the ninth episode, I think, of the Engineering and Manufacturing Educators Exchange, the Educators Toolbox. So I've been traveling quite a bit. Been to a lot of two-year colleges, four-year colleges in North Carolina last week, as you saw in my previous video. And then this week was at a four-year college here in Indiana. But as I've been traveling and kind of going through and thinking about also my daughter having homework coming home, she was sick earlier this week, but seeing some of the homework and thinking about, how do we grade and evaluate manufacturing and engineering, specifically CAD, CAM, but even the parts and the projects that they're coming up with. And it was funny, a couple weeks ago, I was cleaning out my office, kind of going through some stuff. I've been getting rid of, as a teacher, we collect a lot of paperwork, and as a coach, collect a lot of paperwork. So I finally have gone through and condensed down a lot of the things that I've had. I had some student work from 10 years ago that finally, okay, I'm getting rid of this. But there's some core things that I kept. And one of the things was, it was this evaluation tools packet that I found. It's circa March of 2004, I think. Found it online back when I was teaching at the community college level. And one of the things we were trying to think about is just how do we grade and evaluate work? And, big part of it was the process that we had to get things done. So, right now, a lot of you are probably very familiar with, you get you work in or teach a CAD class. The student will do their work. They will download it, save it to their flash drive or save it on the computer. They will then upload that to a learning management system. When I was at Ivy Tech Community College, we used Blackboard and then Canvas. They'll upload it there. Then I have to get on there whenever I'm ready to grade, go and download each one of those files, review that file, add my notes, my tips, my tricks, my ideas, my thoughts, where they went wrong, where they went right, add all that information up, put a grade to it, send it back to them, upload the file, send it back to them, then they review. And sometimes they had questions and it wasn't clear, or I was going so quick that I put something on there and I'm like, shoot, I don't know why I marked that wrong, to be honest with you. So there was some communication there. It wasn't as clean as I'd like it to be. So that was my first couple years of high school teaching. It was very much, marking what's wrong. And then going into college, teaching college, it was kind of the same thing. We had more projects at the college level, coincidentally, than I did at the high school level. But really needed to reshape and rethink how we looked at our grading system and how we graded. So my colleague and I, we kind of went through some things. I think my colleague had a kind of a better approach to it at the time, which was very much a rubric. We tried to use some functionality within our learning management system so we could quickly put marks on there. But the big issue was really that time to grade 20 or 30 drawings or parametric models that I have to go through and kind of cipher through, or projects that were assemblies and I had to look at the assembly and go to the rubric. I'm a fan of rubrics. But I'm also maybe a little bit of a critic of rubrics as well, because they can be quite daunting and sometimes can be a little bit ambiguous in how you grade these things. For instance, on this sample rubric here for a CTE program, that right there, that's a lot of writing to understand really what is an 80% versus a 60%, what's mastered versus exceeded. I always kind of struggle with those levels of terminology and getting the students to understand that as well. We kind of went to more of a go, no-go type scenario and thinking about things in packets. So as we looked at a drawing, as we looked at the project, did they complete this at a, yes, they did. They completed it. May have some issues, may have some things going wrong with it, but at the end of the day, they completed it. Was it the best? Maybe not. 2, they didn't complete it. And here's the reasons why. And we want to be able to provide feedback to all types of students, right? The good students, they get it all right, but you still need to provide feedback to them. And the students that aren't very good, is instead of just continuously red writing it or putting X's all over the place or giving them that, is a lot of times we don't have enough time to give them feedback as well. So as I looked through this and kind of started thinking about more of what I was doing when I was grading, like I said, I didn't necessarily always have a true percentage of, hey, this percentage is going to be an A, this percentage is going to be a B. It was really a pass or fail. Did they do it to what I asked them to do? Now, there was varying levels of that, and that's kind of what we discussed. But one of the things that I started doing a lot more of was having them explain to me verbally what they were doing and how they did it, how they went about it, and us having a kind of an interview discussion. I found that I could take a class period, spend about 5 minutes per student on that, and maybe it's 2 class periods. As time went on, being able to utilize more things like GoToMeeting, Zoom wasn't really around at that time, Google Meetup, those kind of things. We were able to have a little more virtual interaction, or they would come in afterwards. But it was more of a what we have in the industry, right? It was more of a discussion of, hey, boss, hey, I completed this project, but here's the areas that I didn't quite understand, or here's the things that I need help with. And here's the areas where I loved it. This was the part that I loved. This is the things that I enjoyed. This is how I went about that process. So we really made it more of a focus on how industry communicates and does this thing. Your boss doesn't give you, oh, hey, on this rubric right here for the project that you completed, you got a exceed standards or does not meet standards. That's on an evaluation at the end of the year, but that's not per project and per thing. And so I really like that. I will say that the students really got into that. They understood that they were going to have to explain their project. They're going to have to explain their process. I could also see a little more about cheating. I could see a little more about maybe some things that I need to clarify on, because I was actually asking them questions and hearing some consistency across students. And when I heard that consistency across students, that had some spider senses in the back of my neck going, you know what, maybe I need to rethink how I'm teaching this topic. And the great thing is I wasn't doing that evaluation necessarily always at the end of a big project, or always at the end of a big drawing, or always at the midterm, or at the final, or at the end of the course. I was doing it pretty much after every assignment and having that communication. The other thing that kind of sped things up was being very active in the classroom and working with the students as I went. And so I got a good grasp of where students were as they were working. And so I could provide that evaluation to that. So we still kind of had to have a grade. I still had to have really proof on what they were doing. So we started looking at rubrics. We started defining them. And this is, again, kind of my crux with rubrics too, is sometimes you can have them very small, like, a 1, 2, 3, or, 2, 4, 6, or whatever. But you can also have them as too complicated, where they're very much on the high, they've got 5 levels of, hey, below average, average, above average, exceeded. That's too many. I've had many evaluations of myself where there's too many segments to look at that. I wanted to keep it pretty simple, and I really liked, to be honest with you, I kind of just said the one a little bit ago in a negative light, but I really did like the does not meet the standard, meets the standard, more than meets the standard. That really got a sense of what needed to happen, and it wasn't as scary to the students. And that was some feedback that we had was, when they saw a certain number on there, when they saw a certain letter on there, in grade school they're told that, C's, D's, and F's aren't good. You need to have A's and B's. We're cultured in K through 12 in the United States that we need to have good grades. We need to be A, B. We should be at the top. And we get all this stuff, and we get all these reasons why we should be that. But at the end of the day is, really, did we meet the standard? Did we meet more than the standard? Did we go above and beyond? Your average student will meet the standard, and it should be right on there. And that should be a bell curve. That should probably be your central median of student. More than exceeds, that can be additional stuff. But you can give everybody the opportunity to succeed and to have that more than succeeds. But some students don't want that opportunity. Some employers, right, employees, don't want to take that initiative. They don't want to work to be the next manager. They want to be great at what they're doing right now, and that meets the standard of what they are. But you can give them an opportunity to be that great employee, but you can give them an opportunity to be that great student to do that. Now, of course, we want to try to limit the does not meet the standard. And so we want to be able to provide feedback in an effective way. And I do think a rubric in that sense can provide feedback in an effective way as long as you have that rubric pretty set up. Now, again, I think going through the criteria, for instance, on this one, going through the criteria of that is we've got to keep it simple. We cannot have something that is so detailed and so out of realm, with all of this jargon and all this information on there that A, the student doesn't clearly understand what's happening, but B is it kind of slows you down as an educator to give that feedback and to provide that. But what are the core things that you want the students to get out of there? Some people will say, I want to grade everything. I want to know everything that's out, what they're doing. I want to give them a feedback on everything. Reality is we need to decide what's important and what can kind of not slide by, but what can we say, you know what, I can easily see that, I can check that off, I know what that is, but they have to have these core 4, 5, 6 things in this project, in this particular lab, in this deal. And so this has been great because it reflects around drafting design technology. I've been using it as an example for a long time. I lost it for a while and finally found it. But I will say that this one page where it says does not meet the standard, meets the standard, more than meets the standard was that aha moment of let's keep it pretty simple. Let's really dive into the nuts and bolts. What is absolutely needed for me to say you've mastered that. And now I have documentation to show that. The other part of it is that feedback loop. Being able to do that on CAD drawings can be really tiresome and can take a long time, especially if you have over 20 students. And some universities are having 150 students and they got several TAs trying to get that done. And then you don't get the feedback until 3 projects later and you're screwing it up the entire time. And I say by the student is screwing things up because they didn't get the feedback in time. And that's where I had a concern was I was noticing that by the time I got them feedback, we were already a few steps ahead. And I didn't want that to happen. I wanted that feedback so they could get that feedback, learn from it, and progress to the next step. So again, we worked on limiting really what we were trying to accomplish. We worked on getting them the proper feedback that was important to that particular project, that particular lesson. And we kind of just said everything else is good, is icing on the cake, but you got to have these core things. And I think if you take your time and really think about that, you can evaluate what you currently have in there, maybe reduce it a little bit so you can provide that great feedback, or maybe just revamping it, kind of erasing it and saying, let me start over. Let's go through here. I also love working with students. At the end of the semester, a lot of times I would get with students and say, okay, hey, I know that we did this project a few weeks back. I'd like to understand a little bit more. What did you think was the important parts of that? Where do you think we should evaluate more? Should we add something to it? And I really got that good feedback. But again, I do think face-to-face and interaction like it is in the industry, like it is in real life, is a great way to get an understanding of where they are in that rubric. And a lot of times I had the rubric printed out and I would just sit there and say, you know what, Jason, on this, was it proper design rules where annotations are used appropriately? Yeah, show me your annotations. Show me your process on how you did the annotations. I would say you met the standard on that. Or maybe they did something very unique and they went that next step. Oh, that's great. I love how you did that. And again, maybe it's something where includes complete dimensioning of all the parts and locations. Well, they didn't do that. They did not meet the standard of that. But we're going to have a conversation of how would you fix that? Where do you find the information to do that right and to do that well? Who could you ask? So we're going to talk about how to find the answer and not just mark them wrong and say, hey, you did it wrong. Here's how it should be right. We want to make that connection on there. So again, some tips and tricks, some things I like about grading. Grading is a hard thing. I kind of got some different philosophies on grading. I think there needs to be a rubric. There needs to be something to prove that you're grading to something. But I think at the level of that grading can be modified and can be changed to fit what you're trying to accomplish in that particular course, lesson, or program. So Let me know how you're grading things, especially projects that have, maybe multiple students are doing multiple things, and you're trying to fit one thing. Or where do you need help at? Where's a place at a project that you're doing that you're like, I just don't know how to effectively grade this, or maybe think about a rubric, or think about a different way of evaluating this. Let's have a chat. Would love to have that chat. Leave it in the comments. Leave it in there. Looking forward to hearing more about this. But yeah, please share. We got to share. We got to share what's going on. You agree, you disagree, how you're doing it. Let's share, because that's the way, as I talked about earlier, diversity generates creativity. Excuse me, and less is more. And teachers teach teachers best. So let's get out there and share. I appreciate it. Thanks for episode 9. Talk to you later.